Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Table and Plate Project Delta podcast. Each place has its own culture and vibe, and you're joining me as I learn, explore, discover, experience, and talk about food and culture in the Mississippi Delta. Today, I'm testing myself. Can I move with the flow of what's happening and how it's changing everything in these days and times? Our ideas, our plans, our way of life has dramatically changed in the last month or so. As plans change, I'm talking to myself or to whoever might be listening to this podcast. My original plan had been to each time have someone local from the Mississippi Delta to talk to, but in this age of social distancing, not congregating with folks, my plans have changed. So right now, I guess I'm kind of talking to myself or to whomever might be listening to this podcast. First, today I want to read the chapter on my mother from my little book, Grits and Gumbo. The chapter starts off with, growing up, I was not into cooking. Why? Because my mother cooked for a living and was great at it. When I think of her and food, cast iron skillets come to mind. A 10-inch skillet, well seasoned and aged, was how chicken and fish were deep fried, liver and onions pan fried, and my favorite fried cornbread, or what I came to learn was called hoe cakes, were made. An 8-inch skillet was used to make one big pancake, slightly crispy around the edges, with a glorious combination of not too heavy, not too light texture throughout the middle. One pancake was just enough if you weren't too greedy, but two were always better. Everybody loved Mama's pancakes. Her 8-inch skillet pancake was even the favorite of one big Texas teenager who later became a Florida governor. Mama worked for his family. The father became a congressman, and when his wife asked Mama to move with them, she said no. She had to stay in Houston near her mother, Ma Tank. My brother used to say it was the worst mistake Mama ever made. That congressman later became president, and we could have been famous. How in the world he figured that, I don't know. Personally, I was glad when Mama said no, because when she stopped working for them, I didn't have to hear her talking as much about how she loved their little girl. Made me downright jealous at times. Besides skillets, another major food memory I have of Mama is what she told anybody that she worked for. Obviously, since she was at their house cooking, she couldn't be at her house fixing food for her own children. With that said, she let them know right up front that some of what she cooked, especially for parties, would be making its way home with her. Mama worked for some extremely wealthy and influential people, and this was a pretty daring statement for a black woman, a cook and maid no less, to be making this kind of statement in segregated Houston. Most people complied, but one lady didn't want to go along with the program. For example, if Mama tried fried chicken, this lady would count the pieces. These people were what we called stinking rich. They owned a chain of convenience stores at the time or something like that. Mama wouldn't break a sweat, though. She just told the lady, "You can count that chicken all you want. I'm taking some home to my children tonight. The lady was kind of cheap, but her husband was not. He liked Mama's cooking, and since the wife couldn't cook, you can guess who got fried chicken dinners brought home. The other interesting aspect about my mother's work ethic was how it influenced our palate. We all used to laugh about our champagne taste and beer money budget. I keep remembering as early as first and second grades being outside playing with friends and talking about what we had had for dinner last night. Living in the projects meant you were poor, but I never thought that way. When the neighborhood kids said that they had pork chops, rice, and gravy for dinner, it was nothing for me and my brother to describe. Steamed artichokes with hollandaise sauce, or lamb and mint jelly, even though I hated the jelly, or arroz con pollo cooked down with beer, or smoked oysters and blue cheese, and having our friends look at us like we were crazy or speaking another language. Mama did that. We are all Ruth's children, the ones that grew up appreciating good food, all kinds of it, both the simple and gourmet. My next thought is of a 6-inch skillet sitting on a small apartment stove. Mama used that skillet to warm up a piece of garfish and a few tablespoons of cooked spinach. She turned off the flame, walked down the stairs of her upstairs apartment on a Good Friday evening in April. At the bottom of the stairs, she unhinged the heavy metal rod from the floor that she used to add extra security to her steel door. She unlocked the door and unhooked the screen door. Mama probably looked out the door for a minute, quietly stepped back into her apartment, sat down at the bottom of the stairs, and waited for my brother to find her the next day in eternal sleep. The 6-inch skillet with cold garfish and spinach was untouched on the stove. Now, to talk about what happened to me last weekend. I got up real early last Saturday to go for the senior citizen, I am a senior citizen, hour at Walmart, only to find out it only happened on Tuesdays. Oh, that was such a surprise, but it shouldn't have been because I hadn't been to the store in more than 2 weeks. But anyway, since I was there and it was about 6:20 a.m. or so, and I would have been number 5 in the line, I decided to wait, get in the line, and even that was a surprise to me because there was this setup where there were barriers and little blue tape markers on the sidewalk indicating where you should stand 6 feet apart. So anyway, I got in the line to wait for the store to open up at 7 a.m. And everybody was, standing in line. Then the police pulled up and parked. And somebody said, wow, they called the police? So this other lady in the line said, child, they have to have the police here because the other day I heard somebody was up in here fighting over tissue and hamburger meat. So I just kind of bowed my head and shook it and just said, just let me get in this store, get my few little things, and get out. So at 7 o'clock, the store opened. People practically raced in the store, which kind of shocked me. These 2 young women that were standing behind me in the line almost knocked me down so that they could get their cart ahead of me. But I kept it together and proceeded throughout the store to pick up the few things that I wanted. Surprisingly, I noticed that people were racing to the toilet paper aisle. Like, my goodness, what's with the toilet paper? And in a super Walmart, the aisle was completely, practically empty. The second aisle they were racing to was Clorox, where the Clorox was, and I saw people with 6 and 8 bottles of Clorox in their carts, and I just thought to myself, okay, you can't eat toilet paper, nor can you eat Clorox, but I just kept it moving. I bought my produce, my favorite gelato, some spaghetti, English muffins, yogurt, water, a whole chicken, and something I hadn't purchased in years, spicy turkey sausage. Now, some people think I'm vegetarian because my social media posts are mostly vegetables and fruit. Remember, I was raised by a mother who was an excellent cook, and she cooked lots and lots of vegetables. As a result, I love them. I'm also a trained public health nutritionist with food habits formed by my mom and also formed by this thing I called looking through the lens of food and agriculture because of my work. I'm not vegetarian because I've had too many experiences where I've seen people that don't have the luxury of saying what they don't like or don't want to eat or what foods are their favorites because they simply just don't have that luxury. They have to eat whatever is available to them in limited quantities or what have you. So those type of experiences have kind of ingrained in me that I try my best to eat low on the food chain, which means eating mostly a plant-based diet with occasional poultry and seafood. Last weekend, my body said it wanted poultry, so I bought me a chicken. When I got home, unloading my groceries, I felt this overwhelming sadness come over me. Yes, I was very grateful for having the ability to buy this food and bring it home, but I thought about how privileged I was to be able to do that, to have all this food, especially at a time when so many people are having to make decisions regarding buying food or paying bills. Intellectually, I know all this. And these issues just didn't appear with the coronavirus or COVID-19. They exist all the time. These days, they're just amplified by the challenges of this pandemic. I was so sad, though. I couldn't even cook my planned Easter Sunday dinner. Instead, I ate potato chips and that gelato. However, the nutritionist in me cooked after work on Monday. I baked that chicken. I roasted some small multicolored potatoes and sauteed some fresh Brussels sprouts. I plated everything with a few slices of fresh mango, and it was delicious. I haven't quite completely gotten over my sadness. However, I realized that those feelings are a part of my psyche, intellectually, emotionally, and empathetically. We've got a long way to go in dealing with the challenges of this pandemic. We've got to stay safe, strong, do what we can to help others, and nurture our physical, mental, and heartfelt spiritual beings. In closing, I want to thank my great-nephew, Darnell Andrews, aka Third, or THRD, for the beautiful beat of music that I've added to the podcast. His creativity is a ray of sunshine and hope that lets me know that we'll get through this. So take care, everyone, and talk to you next time.